Hey, it's Shirley B, and I believe we all have the power to change our lives for the better. And my goal is to help you believe and know that. Your mindset is your power, and change can sometimes feel overwhelming. So instead of focusing on all the huge things that you may feel you need to do in life, let's instead focus on small mindset shifts, small actions that anyone can take, so that little by little and piece by piece, you will change your life. Thank you for showing up today and welcome to episode 9 of the podcast. I thought it might be a good idea with the time of year that we're in, with the holidays around the corner, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, or any other religion or non religion. This time of year can be difficult and high with emotions. It could be that you're seeing people you haven't seen in a long time, family or friends that you may love to see, but as much as you love them, communicating with them may be difficult at times. And in fact, there could be some family or friends that, while you love them dearly, you may be dreading seeing them because of communication issues, expectations, how you think they should act and how they really do, how they set you off. The anxiety may already be building, and you're already in your mind preparing your responses for when so and so says this to you, and you've already planning on how you'll try to react, and then freaking out because you never react the way you want to, and then you get overwhelmed and it spirals from there. Or maybe it's not what someone says to you, but maybe you're trying not to say something to someone else and not screw up the whole holidays for everyone else. Sounds fun, doesn't it? It can be so stressful and involves so much overthinking. So let's, instead of ruminating and going down a think drain, let's think in a more constructive way and figure out how we can best handle some of these situations by thinking about, how do you love them where they're at or leave them where they're at? And I don't mean actually leave them, although that might be the right response for you, but more about, how do you change your own mindset to focus on what you can manage and let go of what you can't. Changing your mindset to allow more acceptance of how other people interact with you, and either love them and accept them, or leave them and things where they are, and not let their lack or pace of growth affect yours. So, whether you're concerned about what someone will say to you or what you will say to someone else, in both cases, it starts with you. Now, why does it have to start with you when, let's say, it's someone else that's pushing your buttons or saying things that they know will trigger you? Well, because you're the one with the big shiny button that they can trigger. So you have to think about why you even have it and why you're letting them see the big shiny button that they just can't help themselves but push. And yes, they may trigger you, but are you supplying the ammo? Are you letting them see that they have power over you and can get you riled up in a moment's notice? I know it's hard when you really feel like they're just doing this to egg you on and to not get easily triggered, but stop giving them that power. Remind yourself of what is true for you, what's important to you, and let the other stuff go. Remind yourself that it doesn't matter what anyone else says. It's your life and your journey. And think about why they're saying what they're saying. Does it come from a place of love? And if so, appreciate that they're only wanting what's best for you, and it's okay to politely change the subject or decline their suggestions. And if you can't see that it comes from a place of love, it could be this person you're interacting with is not really in a good place themselves and can only offer what they can offer, which sometimes can feel pretty crappy. That their own mess is getting in the way of interacting positively with you or showing you that love, so maybe you can be the bigger person and recognize that they still have a lot of work to do and it has nothing to do with you, and try not to take it so personally. Love them where they're at and leave it there. And the same is true for those in your family or friend space that maybe you have a hard time not pushing their buttons or saying something to them, and most likely what you're saying also comes from a place of love. It could be that your adult kid still doesn't have a job, still isn't contributing to the household. And of course, he likely doesn't feel great about himself. And while nagging him about getting a job is also from a place of love where you just want him to succeed. And let's face it, you want him to make some money and live his life so you can live yours independently. But the nagging only leaves both of you feeling depleted. And getting a job, making enough money to move, figuring out their life can feel huge to them. So, just like this podcast says, little by little, can you put the big things aside and maybe both come together on one little thing, one little change that you can both feel good about as a step forward? Can you see that for whatever reason, those people in your life are not making decisions as you think you would make, but they're on a different path? And so you choose, especially this time of year, to love them where they're at while helping to encourage their own forward movement. None of us are perfect, you and I included. We all have our annoying ways about us. We all have triggers. We all know how to push buttons, and sometimes when someone's button is right there on display, it's hard not to press that shiny red object. For example, someone you love is always late, and you just can't help to point it out and make it about you and their impact on you. And guess what? They already know they're late. They already probably know the impact. But if they're always late, is there a reason? And maybe that reason has nothing to do with you personally. In your mind, you think it's because they don't care about your time. They think they can just do what they want when they want, and you'll just be waiting. But maybe they're just not great at scheduling their time. Maybe it's not that they're lazy and they're not thinking about you, but maybe their brain just isn't wired that way. Or maybe they're so all over the place with other responsibilities that they can't even keep themselves straight. And that's just as frustrating to them, and they already know they're going to get it for showing up late once again. But when you get together, do you actually enjoy your time together, even if they're late? And if so, isn't that the more important part? That you're getting to see someone you care about and that maybe you haven't seen in a while, and if they were gone tomorrow, would you miss that time? So if you can let that small stuff go and change your perspective, let's try that. So start eating without them, and when they get there, simply pull up a chair and say, "I'm glad you're here." Or text and say, "Hey, let's meet at whatever location it is," so you're not waiting for them to come get you. Or if it's not a rush and you don't like standing there doing nothing, then make sure you have your earbuds and use that time constructively to listen to a podcast. I might actually know of what you want to listen to, hint, hint. But basically, get to a place of acceptance and plan your time, knowing that you may have to have a plan B with them, and be thankful maybe that your life isn't so crazy. I'm sure they will appreciate this understanding, and it can strengthen your relationship. And maybe for those few things that you really have a hard timeline, you work in a little buffer time. So there's a little less stress for both of you. And maybe they begin to feel less frazzled and possibly help better manage themselves, and you can love them where they're at. Now, maybe you're doing all the things that you feel are right in your life, but others don't agree and there's buzz in the family. And sometimes, especially, it gets hard when things are being said about you or people have the wrong impression of you based on others' thoughts and history. But here's another time when you can choose to look at it differently. And do you need to be right in this, or do you need to be at peace? Is your side of the story so important to tell, so important to have the last word, or is it more important to be at peace, to preserve your energy for more important things in your own life? It really doesn't matter what someone else thinks of you or says what kind of person you are. What matters is what kind of person you know yourself to be. What kind of person do you want to be, and who do you want to become? It's hard to convince someone else who has lived a different life that your way is right for you, and it can certainly put you on the defensive. But focus on your own knowing, your own truth, staying calm in that truth. And how do you want to feel after the conversation? Is it okay to just walk away from it? Do you lead with love and strength, to turn the other cheek even, when things are being said about you. And I know many of you are saying, well, why does it have to be me? Why do I have to be the one to offer understanding and acceptance? Why can't they? Maybe it's because you're in a mindset and headspace that you can offer that, and they're in a mindset that they can't. Not yet. Be grateful that you're able to offer kindness, understanding, and acceptance because if you were living their life and feeling overwhelmed and anxious, exhausted, lashing out, think of how it would feel for you if someone that you cared about offered that kindness to you. Remember, if you can, you will. If you could, you would. But not everyone can. And why can't they be? Why can't they just be better for themselves, and why can't they be better for you? It could be that a family member or friend is dealing with something bigger than themselves, and they just don't have the space to do or say what you need. It could be that they just haven't learned how to be that supportive human that you need and want. But you have to stop trying to make them what they are not. Love them where they're at and hope they find time to heal and grow. And maybe you actually have some people in your life that have healed and grown on their own, but for some reason they couldn't when you were involved with them. And maybe that leaves you feeling angry because why couldn't they figure themselves out before? Why couldn't they be that person for you when you needed them, whether it's a parent, an older sibling, or a partner? It's likely as an adult that they were still really a child themselves and that they weren't raised to know healthy coping skills, healthy adulting skills. So maybe they didn't raise you the way that you needed to be raised, or they didn't love you the way that you needed to be loved. And now you're seeing them having grown and loving someone else at a higher level. And that can trigger anger in you for not having gotten that adult in your life. You got the flawed, crappy one. And maybe you were that person in that you were a child raising your own children, and maybe not the way that they needed, but it's all you had to offer. And maybe they have some unconscious anger about what they missed out on as a child, and the holidays tends to bring a lot of that back around. Just remember, we're all flawed and doing the best we can, and who knows why or when we each figure out that we need healing. If you're working on healing yourself, then it's time for you to forgive and stop blaming those that didn't know any better. And you also need to forgive yourself and stop allowing yourself to be the scapegoat for other people's emotions simply because you did the best you could with what you had. And when you knew better, you did better. But just because they didn't know, or you didn't know and didn't have the skills, you don't deserve to be punished indefinitely by them or by yourself. Love them and yourself for where you're both at. And it's hard because we expect people to act and react as we do, and when they don't, you want to somehow force change. But you can't expect people to change and grow the way you have changed and grown, or to react and respond the way you do. We're all coming into life and reacting based on our own life's path, and my experiences and how they've shaped me are different than your life experiences and how they've shaped you, and neither is wrong. Now, it could be that some people in your life are bigoted or intolerant, and that's difficult to be around. But maybe instead of going into your separate corners or attacking them or minimizing their beliefs or cutting them off or just shutting down, maybe ask them to tell you their experience. Why do they feel the way that they do? What has been their experience with someone who doesn't have the same sexual orientation as them? What has been their experience with someone of different ethnicity as them? Aim for understanding. Once you understand and become educated in their history, their life experiences, you may still not be in agreement, but maybe you can get a bit closer in understanding. And ultimately, you may still be at an impasse, but at least you can make a decision of where they fit in your life based on knowledge and not based on assumptions and ignorance. But maybe you can figure out how you can love them where they are at based on understanding. And ultimately, if it's not healthy for you to do that, then leave them where they are at. If you have to leave someone where they're at, it doesn't mean you don't love them. It may mean you have to set healthy boundaries for your own self, out of respect for yourself and your own needs. Boundaries are not for others. They're not to necessarily keep people out, but they're there to ensure you keep your own peace. It may mean that you don't love what they're doing and you can't be part of it. Maybe it's an addiction or just unhealthy treatment of you, but you can still love the person and leave them where they're at. And maybe you just need to give them more time to go on their journey and figure out whatever it is they need to figure out. And you need to focus on yourself and love them and yourself enough to give you both the space that you may need to heal. And leaving them where they're at may involve some forgiveness. And forgiveness is not saying that things that were done or said are okay, justified, or right. It's saying that for your own peace and growth, you need to let it be done with and leave it so you can move forward. Now, none of what I'm saying today means you allow yourself to be mistreated, abused, or you're just rolling over and loving someone no matter what. You must always ensure your own boundaries, peace, love, and respect for yourself, and make sure that that is in force at all times. And remember to love yourself where you are at. Reflect on where you've come from, on ways that you've grown, and what you've been through. Think about where you're going, and it's okay if you're not there yet. The important thing is yet, because it reinforces that you're still on your way, that you're taking action, and it's okay and in fact necessary to love yourself right now for where you are at, regardless of how much further you need to go. You need to be giving yourself grace and kindness every day, but especially this time of year when so many other emotions are high. And maybe by sharing this podcast with others that are in the same predicament with family or friends, that you can help them achieve a different outlook and mindset. Accept what you can of yourself and others. Lead with love and let the rest go. Love yourself where you're at, love others where they're at, and leave the rest where it's at so that you can continue on your own healing journey, little by little and piece by piece. This podcast is based on my own life experiences. I'm not a therapist, a psychologist, psychiatrist, or any other licensed medical professional. Please share this podcast with anyone you think needs to hear this so that we all move forward, little by little and piece by piece. And thank you, Purple Planet, for sharing your music.